Meltdown is one of the early Batman Beyond episodes, the third one after the premise was set up with Rebirth. It kicks off with Terry tracking down signs that Powers is dumping radioactive waste out at sea, which of course he is, because he's just that kind of villain. You, want a radiation suit, boss? No, I'm good, thanks. They're ready to load it onto the ship to be dumped at sea, which, unless it makes Ariel grow a third boob, we staunchly disapprove of. You, want a radiation suit, Captain?
No, matey, I'm fine, thank ye. Damn, this be good coffee.
Time for Terry to take action, but of course, care is essential when there's so much radioactive waste about.
Hey!
Now that should be enough to create at least 3 supervillains, Terry. Nice work. Let's see if we can end this without any further radiation accidents.
My work here is done.
Terry pulls the phone off the head goon, and sure enough, Powers' number is on there. Not that it proves anything, but it does give Terry a chance to call and annoy Powers during an important business meeting, which you know is a reward in and of itself. Powers gets so irritated that his fake skin starts burning off. It seems that his radiation is increasing more and more, so Dr. Lake, part of his evil henchman scientist group, suggests that she build him a new body and then transfer his consciousness into it. That way he won't have this radiation problem anymore. But to make sure it works, we must first test it on Captain Solo. Or even better, how about on Victor Freeze? He's someone else who's had his DNA diddled.
I've been like this for nearly 50 years, and I haven't aged one day.
I'm not saying this isn't a great idea for a clickbait article. I'm only saying come up with a different image for the thumbnail than this.
I have become what many men have dreamed of, an immortal. And yet, there hasn't been a day, an hour, a minute, I haven't thought about death.
Thanks, Obamacare.
Dr. Lake proposes restoring him to an intact body. Being a severed head in a jar for 50 years, that's a chance worth taking. 50 years without being able to scratch your nose, it's bound to drive anyone insane. The experiment seems to work, and Victor is amazed that he is both whole and can exist outside his suit now. Bruce isn't too thrilled and picks up Terry after school to make that clear, grinding his bat molars at the thought of both Powers and Freeze walking the streets. And the things he gets up to, like rescuing a cat from getting hit by a train, and visiting the graveyard to leave his old life behind, although that's where he's attacked by some masked man with a machine gun. I mean, it is Gotham, after all. The cemetery's lucky it's someone that normal and not somebody with a Halloween motif. The guy isn't a supervillain, though. He's just after revenge because Freeze destroyed his family years ago. Freeze isn't angry at the guy who tried to kill him, though. He's just sad.
No words can express my sorrow for the pain I've caused you. I beg your forgiveness. It was another life. Though that's hardly an excuse. I can only promise you this. I will do the best I can to make reparations to you and everyone I've ever hurt.
He's even crazier than ever! So Victor uses the accrued interest of his legitimate earnings to set up a foundation to help his victims, to which Bruce has only one thing to say. Bah, he's up to something. Look at the way that he's luring everyone in with a false sense of security by pretending to be reformed. By Arkham? Have you actually seen that place? It hasn't reformed a damn person who's ever entered there. Even the staff wind up turning into criminals after a while. It seems Freeze is going back to his old ways, but not the way intended. The warmth is starting to overwhelm him again. The warmth of your average blizzard. Dr. Lake looks him over to confirm it, much to Powers' irritation. So he suggests a biopsy, which, as everyone knows, means killing the patient. So Dr. Lake cranks up the thermostat to jalapeno and watches Freeze sweat like he just got caught peeing in the boss's coffee pot. But he busts out and escapes into the snow, convincing Bruce that he'll be back. Like before, his only desire will be for revenge. Meanwhile, as proof that climate change has really screwed up the world...
What makes you so sure?
We're having a heat wave, Mr. Powers. Today it hit 70.
Hey, what's going on?
Yeah, we went from snowing to 70 in a day or two. I know the old, if you don't like the weather, wait 5 minutes, but geez, my snowman should not get sunburn. And just to prove how fast it changes, there are icicles over Terry's head as he watches Freeze attack. Which of course is with ice, because no matter the century, you stick with what you know. Plus, like many mad scientists, supervillains, he usually keeps a few hideouts around, so all he had to do was get in one, pull out the old suit, and make with the mayhem. It's even got the freeze gun built into it, so you just shoot cold out of your arms now. Hey, you fight a guy who throws batarangs often enough, you'll learn to give yourself weapons that can't be knocked out of your hand. So after icing up Dr. Lake and Powers, Freeze takes this show outside. Hey, I was just delivering pizzas. What's going on? His plan is to blow this whole place up, and himself with it. But there's two things he didn't count on. Batman, and Powers turning out to be a supervillain. Freeze gets caught off guard, and Powers gives him full frontal radiation. Terry tries to intervene, but his suit's not equipped to shield him from that many rads. But luckily for him, Freeze hits Powers with a concussive ice blast that knocks him into a frozen lake. Again, when it's 70 degrees out. Freeze has done so much damage the place is coming down, and he refuses to let Terry rescue him.
You're the only one who cares.
Afterwards, with Freeze certainly dead, Terry admits that Bruce was right. In the end, revenge is what Freeze wanted. But Bruce is gracious enough to say they were both right. He doesn't say it, but implies that Terry was right about Victor. He was a good man. It was Mr. Freeze who was the villain. He was the one who just lived for revenge. Meltdown is kind of a passing of the torch in that it's the exit of one villain and the first toe-to-toe fight with Terry's archenemy. It also serves as the conclusion of Victor Freeze's journey. He was a good man until his life was taken away. Then he sought revenge. And when he was granted new life, and it was again taken away, history repeated itself. He was a man capable of both great good and great evil. Yet in the end, we cannot help but sympathize with him because he was the victim. Thus why his newfound outlook once he was fully restored to human form, to see all those who were in turn his own victims. When the cold squeezed his heart, that was when his ability to see beyond grief and anger was compromised. Which is why his final remark to Terry is a sign that he had finally, even in a small way, overcome it. A tragic life that led him to his final, tragic end.
All hail the Overlord! All hail the Overlord!
You are idiots.